and welcome to the Iowa Lakes Community College 2021 Convocation Series. Today's convocation is about jazz music. The professional jazz trio will be talking about how jazz musicians in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s sparked social justice through their compositions and their performances. Talking to you about this wonderful history of America is our jazz trio. It features Tony Galizia from Vail, Colorado on vocals and keyboards, Andy Hall from Lincoln, Nebraska on bass, electric and upright, and Joey Galizia from Omaha, Nebraska on percussion. They will each talk about different people from Nat King Cole to Marvin Gaye and tell you their stories of prejudice and the reason they wrote their songs. I'd like you to help me welcome the jazz trio.
I want to thank you for inviting Mr. Andy Hall on bass, my brother Joey Galizia on drums, and myself, Tony Galizia, to participate in what we are calling Jazz Music Matters. And we're going to today touch some of the great jazz artists and some of the events that have occurred in the United States of America with social injustice. I had a personal bout with that back in 1969. Living in Omaha, my brother and I, Joey's hometown, we had some horrible riots during that period of time. There was a young girl of 14 years old that was shot and started some riots in the northern part of Omaha. The very next night, I had tickets to go see one of my favorite jazz artists of all time, and that's the great trumpeter, Mr. Miles Davis. Well, I thought, wow, I wonder if this is going to be safe to go. Got down to the auditorium in downtown Omaha. There were thousands of people around, but I thought, I want to go see this show. I wanted to see Miles Davis and his great quintet. And Miles came out on stage and started the concert by saying, we'd like to start tonight's show with 2 minutes of silence for the young girl that was brutally slain in Omaha yesterday. I thought, wow, these tensions going to get pretty high here. But it was a great show, and I'm glad to have been part of it. We'd like to do one of Miles' great compositions from the all-time selling jazz album, Kind of Blue, recorded back in 1959. This is All Blues, Mr. Miles Davis. Miles Davis, all blues.
Jazz music and social injustice. Jazz is my favorite style of music to perform as well as listen to. It exposes the performer's technical abilities. Jazz also brings out the performer's feeling of expression through the musical language they create. Jazz is America's music. It was created in America, the land of the free. Jazz represents one's personal identity, independence, change, creativity, and freedom. Jazz developed because it gave its performer and the audience a sense of unity and freedom from the social stigmas put upon them by slavery and discrimination. Jazz is spontaneous. A jazz performance is affected by all the elements of the day. Music can affect your soul in a way that spoken words can't. Jazz was not just a part of American history. In Europe during World War II, jazz music was favored by the Nazi resistance. The German Nazis would ban the playing of jazz music because of its American origin and the message of freedom and democracy it represented. Jazz music represents the human condition. It brings out all the emotions we have, whether they are good or bad. Jazz performers have the ability to sing and play in a way that emulates the sounds of sorrow and happiness. Charles Mingus was one of the greatest double bass players in jazz music history. He was a main component of jazz during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Charles wrote over 150 compositions. He also was a fine pianist and band leader. Sometimes he wrote about social issues of the day. In 1957, on September 9th, in Little Rock, Arkansas, 8 black children were blocked from trying to go to their classes at school. The white protesters became so violent that the National Guard was sent in, not to protect the children, but instead blocked the children from entering the school. The governor at the time was Governor Faubus. This incident inspired Mingus to write the song Fables of Faubus. This was always a popular Mingus song. He recorded it 5 different times. Also during 1957, in the country of Haiti, there was a lot of social injustice going on towards the labor workers' movement. Their protests and marches were so enormous that finally they were silenced by Haiti's military. This angered Mingus. He then wrote the song Haitian Fight Song. Mingus said about performing the piece, "I can't play it right unless I'm thinking about prejudice and persecution and how unfair it is. There's sadness and cries in it, but it also has determination within it. And it usually ends with me feeling, I told them, I hope somebody heard me." There is still a lot of discrimination in our world based on race, religion, gender, social status, ability, culture, and nationality. Jazz helps give us a voice to those who are in opposition to all social injustices. The Glitzy Brothers and I would now like to perform Charles Mingus' composition, Haitian Fight Song.
All right, I'd like to introduce this next tune and talk about a true American treasure in the music field. Born under the name of Nathan Coles in 1919 was the great Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole was born into a musical family and studied the piano with his mother, who was a gospel keyboard player, organist. And at the age of 15 years old, he was so accomplished at the piano that he decided it was time to quit school and to pursue his musical career. He formed a really great jazz trio that was known as the Nat King Cole Trio, and it had a little bit of an unusual sound because there were no drums in his trio. It consisted of Nat King Cole on the piano, a guitar, and an upright bass player. Now, Nat had many hits and was very popular as their jazz trio, but then all of a sudden he started singing some tunes, and he got to be more well known for his vocal styles than his jazz playing. In fact, a lot of the jazz players thought that he sold out because he became so popular with the general public. He was the very first jazz musician that was a black musician that had his very own radio program in 1946. That was called the King Cole Trio Time. 10 years later, he was the first black musician to have his very own network television program, the Nat King Cole Show. That show ran for 1 year, was hugely popular, and was in prime time. You know, television wasn't very, it was just in its infancy at that time. And to have a television program that might have been at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night was a real honor. The problem was that Nat King Cole was having a hard time getting sponsorship. And he was known to say the quote that Madison Avenue was afraid of the dark. And they wanted to continue his program, but they wanted to put him on at a different time, which wasn't the prime time slot. And he decided he didn't want to go backwards. So he decided to quit his program. You know, he was such a popular guy that he ended up having a very financially rewarding future and moved into a very prominent neighborhood in California. When he moved in, one of the property owners said, we really don't want any undesirables moving into the neighborhood. And Nat King Cole replied, "Neither do I. And if I see anybody undesirable, I'll be the first one to complain." So he was quite a strong character. And on his very last program, he decided that he would perform one of his hits from 1955. It's called "A Blossom Fell." And it's a song about heartbreak and betrayal. And he kind of felt that way about his television program. So we're going to have my brother Tony sing the beautiful tune called "A Blossom Fell" that was made popular by Mr. Nat King Cole.
A blossom fell from off a tree, settled slowly on the lips. You turned to me. The gypsies say, and I know why, a falling blossom only touches lips that lie. A blossom fell, and very soon I saw you kissing someone new beneath the moon. I thought you loved me. You said you loved me. We planned together to dream forever. This dream has ended, for true love died. The night a blossom fell and touched to lips that lied. blossom fell, and very soon I saw you kissing someone new beneath the moon. I thought you loved me. You said you loved me. We planned together to dream forever. But this dream has ended, for true love died. The night a blossom fell and touched two lips that lied. Keeping with the theme of Jazz Music Matters, here's a great tune by Marvin Gaye, which dealt with the riots in Los Angeles in Watts in 1965. 5 days in March, 34 people dead, 1,000 injured, along with the assassination of Malcolm X and the famous March on Selma. This is Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. Far too many of you crying. Brother, 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 far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Father, Father, war is not the answer. Only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picket lines, brother. Picket signs, sister. Punish me, brother. With brutality, sister. Talk to me, brother. You can see, sister. What's going on? 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 Everything they think is wrong. Oh, but you don't judge us simply 'cause your hair is long. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Pick a line, brother, and pick a sign, sister. Punish me, brother, with brutality, sister. Talk to me, brother, you can see, sister. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Mr. Marvin Gaye, what's going on?
Again, I'd like you to give another big thank you to Tony Galizia, Andy Hall, and Joey Galizia for their great information on social injustice through jazz music. Our next convocation will be March 3rd, right here back on our Iowa Lakes Convocation webcasting. Thank you again for joining us.
Do you want an exciting and fun career that rewards you for your creativity? Then the Iowa Lakes Digital and Social Broadcasting Department is the start of your new broadcasting career path. Be a part of live radio and television broadcasting while honing creative skills with expert instructors. Learn basic and advanced fundamentals for professional radio, television, and social media broadcasting. Be a part of something special and join the Iowa Lakes Digital and Social Broadcasting Department.